Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in the U.S. in Central Maryland. Welcome to the September Global SU Share Fair. I'm really excited to be here, although I am not live. I am away from my craft room, so I have recorded this video for you. But I have a fun card. I believe it's a Thanksgiving card, fun fold, featuring the Loveliest Tree bundle. So I'm super excited. Let's get started. So my project features the Loveliest Tree stamp and die bundle. Now I bought this because way back in the day, probably when I first joined Stampin' Up, they had a stamp set called Lovely as a Tree. And it had a tree similar to this, and I really just loved that set. I loved it to make masculine cards, sympathy cards, fall cards. It just really did everything. So this set has this image, plus it has some great sentiments. Now today I want to make what I would consider a Thanksgiving card. So these sentiments didn't work for me, but I found one in the Unbounded Love stamp set that says, "You are a blessing to me." So that's what I'm going to use. But I am using this little stamp image, these little leaves, and the die bundle. Or the dies that come with the bundle, and particularly this image, which is a tree, like leaves, a die cut, and this tree trunk with branches in it. Now there is a die that matches the tree. You can die cut that. These leaves can be die cut here, and then it has individual leaves that when you die cut them, they also put some embossing into the die cuts. But I'm not using those today. I'm going to use these. Oh, so maybe I should show you also what my project looks like, huh? So let's keep this out. I keep referring to it as a Thanksgiving card, and here is my card. So this is a fun fold. So here is that these little bundles of leaves. I've stamped those on the edge. I've die cut the tree trunk and the tree branches. And then on the inside, "You're a true blessing to me." Now that does come from the Unbounded Love set. That's in the annual catalog. I'll do a short catalog tour at the end of this. And then I just added some embellishments. I used some linen thread and these druzy, gosh, what are they called? Druzy adhesive backed embellishments. They're from the mini catalog, and I just love them. I don't know if you can tell, but it's almost like they are like a geode. They have all these little nooks and crannies, and they sparkle. Like, wow. Okay, so let me set my stamp set aside and bring in the pieces that I'll be using for my card today. And you can refer to the Stampin' Up demonstrator who invited you to this global share fair, and there is a PDF with pictures of all the projects that are shared in this share fair, along with the ingredients and cutting measurements. So you can use those and the video, and you can recreate these projects. So this is my cardstock base, and it's a half sheet. So I've cut it 5.5 by 8.5. For our metric friends, that is 21 inches by 14.9 centimeters. I have 3 pieces of copper clay, and these are cut at 2 inches by 3.5 inches. My metric friends, I know that it's 5 centimeters. I'm not sure about the length. That will be in the PDF. A piece of Very Vanilla is the same size, and I'm going to cut this right here live. And then we need some scraps. I've got cardstock wild wheat, peach pie, pumpkin pie, and this is a piece of Country Woods DSP. So let me bring in my cutter, and I can show you how we're going to do some of these pieces. So for this Very Vanilla, make sure you can see what I'm doing here. It's going to be 2 inches and by 3.5. And as I said, the measurements are the same as this copper clay. Hey, you know what? Just a minute. I do have a metric grid here. I should be able to tell you the metric. Oh, everything's going sideways. I do have a metric grid here, so I should be able to tell you the size of this. It's 5 inches, 5 centimeters by 9 centimeters, or 8.8. It really doesn't matter. Be close. Let me be more specific. 8.9. There you go. So you need a vanilla, a very vanilla, and 3 copper clay cut to that size. Now for our card base, we're going to do this fun fold. We're going to just do some scoring. So we're going to score this at 2 1/8, or 5.3 centimeters. And then we're going to score at 4 1/4, or 10.5 centimeters. And that is it for cutting and scoring. So these are ready. And now we're going to do some die cutting. So as I said, I'm using this tree trunk. And this is a scrap. And I just need 3 of these. And I probably, with these lines in the DSP, would cut it this way rather than trying to cut it this way or sideways because of these markings in the paper. So I would do that and then cut one of these. After I'm done that, cut one in wild wheat, and then I'll cut one in peach pie. So let me go to my cut and emboss machine and I'll be right back. Alright, so there are my 3 tree trunks, my pumpkin pie, wild wheat. Now I did want to give you a little tip. So sometimes when you cut some die cut, some of the pieces remain in place. Now you can do one of 2 things. You can take your pick, and it has a paper piercing end, a pokey tool, sharp edge. You can go through like that. But the take your pick tool also comes with a brush tip, so you can unscrew your putty end and screw in your brush tip. And this brush tip also comes with a foam pad, and you can roll over it like so, and it will loosen most of the pieces up. And if there are any remaining pieces, you can poke it through. You can also use your fingernail, but that's a little bit more time consuming. So there you go, quick and easy. And the other thing is, oh, I think there's one left. Sometimes these dies with these narrow little pieces get stuck in the die. And I had this happen when I was die cutting. So it gets stuck in here. Let's see if I can recreate the problem. Maybe. Because these narrow little pieces don't want to come out sometimes. So you could run your brush tip to loosen it, and usually you can just run the pokey tool over. Or if you don't have the brush tip, again, you can just poke it through like this to loosen it and bring the die cut out of the die. So that was just a little tip for you. So now we're ready to do some stamping. So I'm going to stamp on this piece of berry vanilla and on my card base. And then we're going to do some sponging, so some daubing techniques. So today's video is not only a fun fold, but it's kind of a tip on how to use, or different things you can do with sponge daubers. So I'm going to be using copper clay to stamp on this piece of Very Vanilla, and this is the inside of our card. And this stamp again comes from the Unbounded Love, which is in the Stampin' Up's 2024-2026 2025 catalog, excuse me. So I'm going to put this more towards the top, so if I want to write a personal message towards the bottom, I'll have some room for that. You could also put a piece of Very Vanilla on the back side here and write a message. So now I'll set this piece aside and do the remaining stamping. Now I'll bring in my crumb cake. Now before we do that, I am going to use my bone folder to crisp up these score lines. So I'm going to fold it in half on that middle score, the 4 1/4 score, or 10 1/2 centimeters, and then on the 2 1/8 or the 5.3 centimeters, 2 1/8 inches, 5.3 centimeters, fold that back, and I'm going to crisp that up again with my bone folder. And that's how our card is going to look like, and I'm going to stamp these leaves on the top and bottom edges. So with crumb cake ink, I'm going to bring in a scrap paper, because when I am filming, I like to have a pristine work area. If you watch my videos, that's just one of my quirks. Okay, so and there's my little leaves, and I want to keep this generally to the top 1 inch or 2 1/2 centimeters. And I don't know that there has to be any kind of pattern other than trying to keep it towards the top. I did re-ink my crumb cake, because when I was making the sample I noticed it was a little light, so this might be a little bit darker than the sample, but that's just because it had gotten a little dried out and I felt like it needed re-inking. And that's the good thing about Stampin' Up. They provide, once you have the ink pad, you can buy the re-inker and you have a long-lived ink pad that way. As long as you have the re-inker, you can go on forever. Okay, and now for the bottom, we'll just repeat that. I'm going to start on the left. Let's see if I can bring this up so you can see what I'm doing. Keep it on camera. Maybe I should make these go the other way because they're coming up from the bottom. I don't know. What's your feeling on the leaves? Does it matter? Can they go upside down when are they falling leaves? Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Do I want them to be falling leaves? Does it matter? Leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts on these leaves. Am I doing the pattern in the right way? Should I rethink what I'm doing? Yeah, that's the bad part about crafting by yourself. You need an opinion and there's nobody there to give you an opinion. Okay, so now we are done with the crumb cake. And we can move on to our sponging. So our base is done. Our vanilla piece is stamped. So we've done all our stamping. Don't need our scrap paper anymore. And now we're going to get into our techniques with our daubers. So we're starting with copper clay. Now I did the edges on these. I just distressed them a little bit, darkened them up with adding copper clay. So it's kind of a monochromatic effect. Let's bring out our copper clay cardstock pieces. Ink this up my dauber. So here's my dauber. You can put it on your finger. For me, I just hold them and go along the edges. So I'll just sponge all around all four sides on each piece. And there really is no right or wrong reason. You put as much or as little ink on as you like. First piece, now the second. So this is just one technique for daubers, and I'll be showing you a second technique shortly when we come to our trees, our die cut trees. I'm brushing off the edge, just more or less flicking the sponge top onto the edge of the cardstock. And then the third piece, last piece. And there could be enough ink. If you have a juicy ink pad, you might not need to keep dabbing it back into the ink pad. Again, it's all personal preference on how much ink darkness you want to bring to the edges. And that's the end of the copper clay. So there is ink. You can take this to your sink and rinse it out. Just run water over and just kind of pounce my finger on it. Or if you have a chamois, you can kind of dab off in the chamois to get most of the ink off. It won't completely, but it will take a lot of the ink away from the sponge top. And now we have ink for each of our die cuts in this coordinating colors. We got pumpkin pie, peach pie, and wild wheat. And so there's our wild wheat die cut. And for this one, another sponge dauber. These are clean and stained, still works. I've washed them out, so there's no ink left, no pink ink to cross-contaminate. So I'm going to pounce on my ink pad and then kind of just go around the edges, same as I did for those copper clay. And there's really no rhyme or reason. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'm going to do a little bit in the center just to give some depth to it. Maybe right there. And that piece is done. And I'll just do the same for the next two. So for a pumpkin pie, now with pumpkin pie and our pumpkin pie die cut, same thing. Go around the edges and just darken them up. I think this adds a little bit of interest. It softens the monotony of the same color of cardstock. And you know, trees are variegated, so it does offer some variegation. And then do some in the center. Maybe a little bit more in the center. I really want this a little bit darker. Maybe I should have re-inked this one, huh? That's my next task on my to-do list. And now moving on to peach pie. And this is an in color, the current in color 2023 to 2026. And bring my dauber in. For a minute there, I thought I was using the pumpkin pie, but I think this is just the peach color. And then just a little bit in the center. Give it a little variation. There we go. And that's all the daubing. So we use the dauber on the edging to distress the edges, and we use dauber to bring some variation into our die cuts. And now we can start assembling. So each of these pieces of copper clay is going to have a tree in the center of it. And then we're going to adhere the die cut over top of that, like so. And I'll be using some liquid glue, multi-purpose liquid glue, and I am going to be using my grid for this to find the center point to put my tree on. So I found the center, and I'm going to use this darker line here to help me. Turn over my die cut, and I'm just going to put a little dab of glue. Just this glue, a little bit goes far. And I don't really need to worry about these branches. I mean, I'll put a little bit up there because they're going to be covered by the die cut. And then about a quarter inch from the bottom, or about maybe a ½ centimeter. And then now I can put my die cut over top, and I like this little branch on the left to be peeking out, so that's how I'm going to glue this on. And again, just rather put little dabs of glue kind of around the edges so they don't lift up, and then some bigger spots in the middle. But I would not put a lot of glue because I don't want it oozing out. So now I'll continue with the same techniques for the next two. Now that all three trees are completed, I want to add my linen thread before I adhere the panels to the card base. And if I have an issue that if I try to cut before I tie it, I either cut it too short or too long. So I usually tie off the spool. I just pull it off the spool, tie whatever I want to tie, and then cut. I don't know why, but that's how it rolls with me. So let's see if I can do this bow on camera. It usually takes me extra. I don't know, it's something with the camera, so let me see. And I want it a little to the left, so let me shift this a little bit. Okay, and now I can fiddle with it and plump out my bow a little bit. Tighten it up, make the bow a little bit smaller. And then I'll just snip the edges, and I'll might even trim them shorter once I have attached them to the card base. So let's put these up and then lay them out. Kind of do a dry fit run. So this pumpkin pie one is going to be our last panel. Our peach pie will be our second panel. And then our wild wheat panel goes on the front as our first panel. And I'm just going to center it between these stamped images, and then between the edge and the score line. And then with my multi-purpose glue, let's adhere that. So it'll be very close to the edge, but not over, and to the score line. And the multi-purpose glue gives us a little bit of wiggle room. That looks good. And then that will help with placing our second tree panel. And this, the same thing. So I'm getting close to the score, but not right over it, and trying to center it there. And then our vanilla panel, I'll give it about the same amount of room. So do you think this is would you give this as a Thanksgiving card or for another occasion? Leave me a comment, let me know, because I'm interested. My daughter didn't care for this, but she doesn't often care. She always has some criticism about like the cards I create, that she would have done things differently. She doesn't like them for this reason or that reason. And she felt that this was not a Thanksgiving card, but she couldn't really articulate or tell me why. So I'm lining up the bottom with the very vanilla, leaving a little bit on the right hand side. Okay. And so the card just needs a little bit of bling now. So let me bring in these druzy jewels. What's it? Embellishment. Druzy adhesive backed embellishments. And I didn't know what druzy is. Druzy, what that meant. I had to Google it. And it's kind of this geode-like feature. So let me bring in, I take your pick tool, and we're going to use that putty end. And I did a large one up here, and then a medium or small one. Okay, on this side. I just liked a little bit of bling, and then I did one of these small ones again down here in the corner. I just brought a little bit of bling to it, and I like that kind of champagne color. So that is my card, the fun fold. So it would stand up like so. So when they're looking, they might see the second tree or one tree, depending how it stood. So let me do the catalog tour as I had mentioned. So this is the annual catalog, Stampin' Up annual catalog 2024 to April 25. And on page 51, this we find the Country Woods DSP, and I think I used this, either use this pattern, yeah, this pattern, because it had the peach on the reverse side. So page 51 for the DSP, the pattern paper, and then on page 71 we have the bundle, the Loveliest Tree bundle. Now, if you see on this sample here, they put the tree trunk on top of that die cut for the tree top, the tree trunk on top of the tree. I'm not sure I agree with that. And I also would like to have your thoughts on that. Okay, so then moving on, page 94, this is where we find the sponge daubers. So they're showing you different things you can do with the sponge daubers. I showed you 2 techniques. And then on page 94, it's kind of hard. It's in the center, so it's number 7. And this is the take your pick die brush tip with the foam mat. And the take your pick tool is here, number 9 on page 95. And then we have the linen thread, page 113, it's number 3. And then we start with our cardstocks and ink. So we have pumpkin pie on page 136. We have the cardstock and the ink pad. And on the next page, we have the crumb cake. This is page 138. We have crumb cake cardstock and ink. And then on page 139, we have the peach pie cardstock and ink. And wild wheat cardstock and ink. Oh, and the copper clay cardstock and ink. So all that can be found there. And then I think the last thing I wanted to show you was the embellishment, and that does come from the new mini catalog. This just went live September 4th, and it goes through December 24th. And those druzy adhesive backed embellishments are right here, page 29, and they're right here, number 3, right in the center of the page. So there you go. Thank you so much for joining me for this Global SU Share Fair. Remember, ask the demonstrator who invited you to this group for the PDF of all these projects, which gives you cutting measurements and supply lists so you can recreate these projects on your own. And until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Bye.